Our first game is called Scavenger Hunt. And for this, you're going to need an adult to come up with some sort of criteria sheet for you. And then you will need some scissors and glue. And you will need some old packaging materials, whether it's stuff from your kitchen or whether it is an old magazine or some trash that you got in the mail, something that you don't want to keep, whatever it is, something with numbers on it. So for the criteria, parents, you want to ask your child to find something similar to these first two right here. A number that has a 0 in the ones place, a number that has a 7 in the tens place. Now, depending on the level of your child, if they can handle those very well, then ask them to find some numbers in the hundreds place. Just make up anything. It doesn't matter what numbers you put in what place, just make them up. And then it is the child's job to look through all of the recyclable things, the magazines, the old packaging, that kind of thing, the junk mail, and to find the numbers that match these criteria. Okay, so for instance, a 0 in the ones place right here. Well, let me choose this. So right here on my cereal box, I have this number right here, and it has a 0 in the ones place. So I'm going to cut that out and then glue it into my space on my sheet where it says number with a 0 in the ones place. And it doesn't matter what number it is, how big the number is. All that it matters is that it fits the criteria that you are asking for. Okay, then I have a 7 in the tens place. That's my next criteria. So this packaging right here, I have a 7 in the tens place. So I'm going to use that for my next criteria. Okay, now this should be fairly easy and simple for your first grader to take care of and to do. They should have been able to do this actually last year in kindergarten. Here's where the first grade part comes in. Then you want to ask them what is the value of that number. Okay, so if I have a 0 in the ones place, the value of that 0 is 0. Okay, if I have a 7 in the tens place, the value of that is 70. 7 in the tens place is 7 tens, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. So that's the value is 70. 7 tens is the same value as 70. Okay, and so on. You can make as many of these as you want or as few of them as you want. You can make them as easy or as complicated as you want. But that's our first game called Scavenger Hunt. Answer is a very simple game. All that is required is 2 people, an adult and a first grader. So adults, ask your first grader that the answer is 2. And your first grader is going to say something like 1 plus 1. Then you say the answer is 6. And your first grader may say a hexagon. Or you may say 3 plus 3, or 4 plus 2, or 6 minus 0. All right, so you just give them a number and they have to come up with the problem to fit it. So kind of the opposite of what we typically think of when we do math. Instead of giving them the problem and them having to come up with the answer is you give them the answer first and then they have to tell you the problem. And it can be anything as long as it's truthful. Enjoy. So for Bullseye, you need to create some sort of target looking structure, bullseye here. Have some tens and some ones. If your child is more proficient with place value, you could put maybe 100 in the middle. And you're going to need some buttons to play this game. And other than that, that's it. You can make your bullseye just out of paper, or you can make it out of a poster board. You can make it as small or as large as you want. Here's how you do it. You take your buttons and kind of shake them up, throw them down, and then you need to add up your numbers. So here I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 1. So altogether, I got a 41. So you can either write that number down, take a score, find out who's higher, who's lower, however you want to do it as far as keeping score or figure out who's winning or just have fun with it. So again, you take your buttons, you throw them down, then wherever they land, you add them up. 10, 20, I'm going to consider this a 1, 21, and this one doesn't count, and neither does that one because it's not in a circle. Okay, or you can make these ones as well. However you want to do it, it's your game board. You can fix it how you would like. Variation of this game, you can get some dice, and you can do them on the chart, and you can say this 3 ended up in the ones, so 3 ones is 3. And this 2 is not even in the circle, so altogether I got a 3. Or, let's pretend this fell here. So now, and this one fell here. So now I have 4 in the tens place, that makes 40, and a 1 in the ones, so that makes 1, so that would be a total of 41. So that's another way that you could play it as well. You could do it like that. So that's Bullseye. "20 Questions" is another easy game that you can play that requires no materials. What you want to do is think of a question, think of a number, and then have your child to ask you questions to figure out what the number is. This might be something that you want to start out with your child actually thinking of the number first, and then you asking the questions to kind of give them an idea of the kinds of questions that they should be asking. So, for instance, they might say, well, is there a 6 in the ones place? Is there a 2 in the tens place? Is it a double-digit number? If I add the 2 digits together, does it make 8? Questions like that. You can do 3-digit numbers if you would like, not necessarily required for first graders, but if your child is pretty proficient with 2-digit numbers, you can move up into the threes and have them to ask questions that way. They could even ask, is it an odd or an even number? Is the number in the tens place an odd number? Is the number in the ones place an even number? All sorts of questions that you can ask in order to do this. So have fun and try 20 questions. All right, so Race to Blank requires some dice and some way of recording your answers. So you can start out, for instance, just doing Race to 10. And if you are doing Race to 10, I would just do one die. And you roll your dice. I got a 2. So I'm going to put my 2 up here. Then the other person can go, and they get a 4. And so then what you can talk about here is, well, I have a 2, so how many more do I need in order to get to 10 before I win? I need 8 more. So it gets in those partners of 10 and working with that, which is something that we do a lot in first grade. So then you roll your dice again, and this time it's a 4. So now we add 4. And we see that 2 plus 4 is 6. Now I'm at 6, so how many more do I need in order to get to 10? And that would be, of course, 4 more, and so on. If you're going to do something a little bit higher, like race to 50, then I would use 2 dice for that. So roll the dice, add them up. I have a 1 and a 5, so that makes 6. That way it goes a little bit faster for you. Or if you want it to take more time, you can just use 1 die. And then you just keep rolling. I've got a 6 and a 3. So now that's 9. So now I'm going to add those two together. The problem with race to a number that's bigger than 20 is that you're going to run into some adding with regrouping, and that is a skill that we don't necessarily work on in first grade. So just be careful with that and how you approach that with your child. So if you wanted to, you could just kind of stick to under 20, and that would be good for first grade. So have fun with race 2. So there's all kinds of things that you can do with a deck of playing cards and math. So you need to find some sort of deck of cards. This one, I took out all of the face cards. So these cards right here, I took out the face cards and I took out the jokers. Okay, so put those to the side. You won't need those. Or you can use a deck of Uno cards. I just bought these at the dollar store. And again, just use your number cards. The cool thing that I noticed about these cards is that there are zeros in them. I thought that was kind of neat. So I took out all the crazy looking cards, like the lose your turn or whatever they are, and the wild cards. I took out all of those. Okay, so just put those to the side and just use the number cards. Or you can even just use a set of dice for this. Or if all else fails and you don't have any of those things, you can just get some paper and cut it up into squares and write different numbers on them and have a whole bunch of them. So however it works for you, make it flexible. Don't spend any money. Use what you have at home, okay? So here's how the first game works. The first game is called Place Value War. So what you're going to do is you're going to pass out all of your cards, all of them, to all of the people that are playing so that everybody has an equal number of cards. Then everybody's going to turn over the first 2 cards. You can either make the biggest number with your cards that you can make, the smallest number with your cards that you can make, or just however it comes up, use it like that. Okay, and I have 33, so then we got to see what everybody else has that I'm playing with, and the person with the largest number gets to keep the cards. So that's how you can do place value war. Instead of just turning over 1 card, you would turn over 2. So that you would have bigger numbers. If your child, again, is really proficient with 2-digit numbers and you want to move up into 3-digit numbers, you can do that as well and work with that. All right, so that is place value war. Another thing that you can do is you can turn over 2 cards really fast. Everybody in the circle has to add or subtract, depending on what you're doing. You would need to set the criteria saying, this game, we're going to add everything. So the first person to say the correct answer, 13, is the winner, and they get to keep the cards. Turn over the next 2 cards. Add them up again. First person to come up with 12 is the winner, and they get to keep the cards. Or you can roll the dice, or you can use the Uno cards, however you want to do. Again, you could just turn over 2 cards and make the largest number. That's another thing that you can do. All right, so the largest number I can make with an 8 and a 1 is 81. If I have 81, then I have 8 tens, which is 80, and 1 1. So this is 8 tens and 1 left over. All right, so all kinds of different things that you can do there with a different set of cards. All right, so lastly, I want to talk about money, something that we just finished talking about before we left school and need to review. So if you will, remind me what coin this is. Very good. It is a quarter. And how much is a quarter worth? Good. 25 cents. All right. These are dimes. Remember, those are the smallest sized coins. Those are dimes, and dimes are how much? 10 cents. All right. These are, and that's a little difficult to see there. This is a nickel, and a nickel is how much? A nickel is 5 cents. Very good. And of course, the all-important penny, and of course the penny is 1 cent. All right, so don't forget to practice naming your coins and remembering how much they are worth. And also, I wouldn't use the quarter so much, but I would practice, get mom or somebody to pull out several of these for you and start practicing counting them, okay? For instance, dimes and pennies are just tens and ones because this is 10 cents and 1 cent. So I have 10, 20, 30, 31, 32, and 33. Okay, and if you get really good at that, then you can substitute a dime for 2 fives, because 2 fives make a 10. So again, that's 10, 20, 25, 30, 31, 32, and 33. All right, so practice your coins, practice naming them, practice their values, and practice tens and ones, dimes and pennies. Enjoy.